You know something big must have happened if I'm reactivating this channel again. So, to the best of my understanding, at some point late last year, so around a year ago, a lot of the set prototypes for Hero Factory figures leaked online. Surprisingly, despite being constantly invested in the community for the last 11 years, I don't remember this happening, and I've spoken with a few people on the unofficial Hero Factory Discord and on the Wikia, and a lot of them don't remember how this happened either. The closest they can get to it is in that recent YouTube video where we saw the original name and logo for Hero Factory, which was Makahiro. The set designs are massive. This is the biggest Hero Factory news by far we've gotten since its cancellation in 2014. So I'm going to go through the designs, and obviously I'll have pictures on screen. No set was left unleaked. These designs go all the way through from Rise of the Rookies to Invasion from Below, and there's a mix of different boxes, slightly different designs, and a lot of very different renders and pieces. So we're going to begin with Rise of the Rookies and a look at Beta Proto Thunder. Now, the first thing that I noticed here is the render. Obviously, it's not in its final stages, and then you have a look at the background, which has changed. It seems like there's more of a jungly atmosphere. Then you look a bit closer at the arm on the right, and you see some of the pieces on the weapon there are different, mainly the middle piece. That isn't meant to be there at all. And then weirdly, if you look down from the claw, you can see that there are stats. That's really interesting. That means that every character was meant to have stats, and that actually would have been very cool. You can see that the number of pieces hasn't been defined yet, and generally looking at it fully, the box is different. Only slightly, but the box is different. This is the first set prototype that I, and presumably a lot of other people, saw, and it's very exciting. It's very exciting and very interesting, because I now want to own this box. And that's never going to happen, but it's really cool because it's ever so slightly different. For a little bit of added context, it's now common knowledge that each Hero Factory set, began production 2 years before it was released, which means that some of Hero Factory's foundational ideas began in 2008. So this would be around late 2008 to 2009. Next we have, and I looked at this for quite a while yesterday, we have a prototype for the Ordeal of Fire poster. Now, there is so much to note here, but we're going to begin obviously with possibly the main thing, it's certainly the biggest thing. Fire Lord has a claw, as we can see from the fingers poking out there from behind some kind of Hero Factory Arc logo. This is an almost Stringer 3.0 claw. What I want to draw your attention to are the words in the corner. Now obviously this is quite difficult to read, so I'm going to zoom in for you. In the corner here it says William Furno Scout, Mark Surge Sniper, Bill Dozer Heavy Artillery, and Mac Brainy Tech Guy. Now, it's obvious that a lot of things have changed since this text was written. William Furno and Mark Surge are fine as normal, but I'm not sure why they've been added alongside Bill Dozer, who presumably became Drill Dozer, who is a villain, and Mac Brainy doesn't even exist. But what makes this more confusing is that you can tell these aren't early versions of heroes' names, because if you look at the bottom of the picture, you can see that the lineup for Ordeal of Fire was already finalized. When looking at the boxes, the only difference is the tops of the boxes are a different color, the renders are a little different and are slightly more detailed, and the background is different as well. So I'm not exactly sure who, and I'm reading that right, Bill Dozer and Mac Brainy are, and why they're written alongside William Furno the Scout and Mark Surge the Sniper. And that is a question that, honestly, a lot of people aren't going to be able to answer. It's also interesting in particular to see Surge written here, because in Ordeal of Fire, Surge 2.0 only appears in the last scene. So perhaps they were intended to play a larger role? Could be. Other than that, looking at the pictures here, it does seem like they were pretty far along development. I would put this as a 2010 image, if I had to guess. I'm just now seeing behind the Hero Factory logo, there is Some more text. It reads Preston Stormer Commander and Natalie Breeze Close Combat. So they are both true. They've never been written like that before. I don't think they were ever actually given titles or roles. But it does seem like this Hero Factory logo banner at the top is covering text that would otherwise read that. Very interesting. Here we have a look at an early Ordeal of Fire poster, which is a closer look at the fire villains. Before we get to looking at them separately, the banner at the top here also includes text that says Scout, Bulldozer, and... Does it say Bulldozer twice? I don't even think those are words. Heavy Artillery, Bulldozer... Oh, Mark Surge, Sniper, and Scout. So yes, that's the same text that we saw before. The main focus here is Fire Lord. They do generally look the same, but obviously the main attraction here is this claw, because presumably you could make that. It doesn't seem like any pieces would be exclusive, but certainly they're hard to find if you wanted to go through and making that. But that's so weird. Fire Lord was meant to have a claw, and they downgraded it, because it is just a normal hand. So I would prefer this. I think it suits them, and it seems like the weapon from this angle is the same as well. Are the feet wider than they were? I can't exactly remember now. But I think they're a little more stable, a lot more bulky. Drill Dozer, confirming that they are not Bulldozer, looks to be the same-ish. That means that they always had the arm with nothing on. I always just used that to stabilise Drill Dozer, but it seems like from the beginning, it was never meant to have anything on it at all. With Jetbug and Nitro Blast, it does seem like their renders are just a little different, but their designs have been finalised. I know from owning both of these, obviously, that Nitro Blast at least is the exact same, and it seems like Jetbug is as well. It is blurry. This is a victim of the quality, but it looks like the chest piece may be a tiny bit different, but not too much out of the ordinary. It does seem like the main design difference to take a note of here is Fire Lord, and if I had to take a guess as to why the claw was scrapped, which is complete speculation, I'd say because the main piece would move the hand left to right and not forward and back. That could make movement a little weird, a little odd, but that is purely my speculation. At the bottom here we find out that in this picture and the last, it's in German. I can't translate that, and it's a picture, so I can't put the text into translate either. I'm assuming it's just some preliminary information about the Ordeal of Fire sets. And we also have here the original boxes for Firelord, Drill Dozer, Jetbug, and Nitro Blast. Not too different, obviously the renders are, but other than that, yeah, you can tell that this is fairly along the road when designing Ordeal of Fire, and there weren't a lot of changes to be made, and it's still very interesting to see. Next is the equivalent of that, but with the heroes of Ordeal of Fire. You can see the same text at the top as well that we're familiar with. I looked at this for a long time last night, and I couldn't notice anything different, other than the renders, especially on Evo 2.0. I feel like they might have changed the blue pieces to purple there, or a different shade of yellow as well. Other than that, these are the final designs for the heroes in their poses. They just needed different renders. This is another picture. Now, the renders here are different. These pictures actually do not exist in any final manual. Drill Dozer, Jetbug, and Nitro Blast names had been finalised. I'm not entirely sure, again, where this picture would come from. It does look to be some kind of manual, and I feel kind of sorrowful that we missed out on this picture. It's very cool. This next picture is a closer look at Firelord's box itself. I'm not sure if I remarked on this earlier, but there is a massive piece on the back of Firelord's weapon. I think an equivalent to that is there, but it certainly is not that piece, so that's quite interesting. The claw is back, which means it must have been removed quite late, and I mean, that's evident by the fact that it was replaced by just a regular hand, but there's that as well. The box also looks slightly more different, looking at it up close. Obviously the fire in the background is insanely cool. What's important to note here is that, yes, this is quite late, because the list of pieces shows 156, and that's inclusive of the claw. This, to me, is the big one. If not Thunder, this would be the big one that I would draw your attention to. The prototype for Witch Doctor. The first thing I noticed here, weirdly, was the render. Obviously, all of these renders are before they'd created final detailed versions. But this one in particular struck out to me. I don't know why. Once I'd gotten that out of my head, obviously the main focus here is the staff. The staff is black. By making the staff black, the actual little white claw things under the skull actually become a lot more pronounced, which is a very cool design choice to me. Also, the box for Savage Planet would have been different as well. The logo would have been green, which would fit the theme for the series, certainly. The background is also weirdly less detailed than the final one, but also quite complex. There's a good sense of some perspective here. Obviously, all of this would have been changed for the final design anyway, but overall, yes, the name has been decided and the piece number has been decided. Overall, yes, the name has been decided. The design doesn't look too different other than the staff. There are some of these grey pointy out pieces. I'm not entirely sure where they would go. I know that Witch Doctor doesn't have any of those in the final design, so that's also something interesting. This next leak is a higher quality version. Overall, this is the picture that I used to have a little gander at it last night as well. Yeah, the main focus here is just that the staff is massively different. I think other than that, and the white ball in the weapon there, as well as these next 3.0 claws. Other than that, yes, this is Prototype Witch Doctor, which is very, very cool. This is really funny. This is a prototype design for a bag in the Breakout set. Now, you get the idea that this becomes Furno 4.0, but it just looks so weird looking at it now. Obviously, they hadn't finalised the design for Furno 4.0. The main body armor and the legs were a lot more bare, but you can see, you know, the background is sort of similar. They'd gotten the theme of Furno 4.0 as a water hero on lock. This is basically just the Breakout bags, but with a lot of elements removed, and it's an early version in a way that you can't really describe, which is really, really cool to look at. Next is an early design for Black Phantom. Nothing has changed design-wise, other than perhaps Arachnid being a shade or two darker. The render has obviously changed. This is a prototype after all. I'm going to say that with all of them. And the background is different. This seems to be somewhere in a kitchen. I don't know why I'm thinking that, but it's not Hero Factory, and it's certainly not the design they went with, but I don't know why my mind went to kitchen. This could be somewhere in Hero Factory, I'm not sure. Other than that, yes, logo well known by now, because when they were designing Breakout, the first sets had already come out, so a lot of things like the logo and the design of the boxes were finalised. It's also important that it says plus 200, which means the game, Breakout, was also in development at this time. This is the original design for Stormer XL. Now, obviously the body is a lot thinner. This is what they've got in this prototype is just a 2.0 body on a 1.0 head. In the final version of Breakout, obviously his body is a lot wider, so that's very cool to see as well. The weapon, I can't exactly make out what that is. It seems to be, I was going to say it was another sword, but it isn't, because the end is more closed, and there's something, some black pieces at the end. Actually, judging by the wire at the top here, this could be a 4.0 weapon, like one that you'd find on Evo or something. Now, they went a bit overboard with these scout drone pieces. Obviously, they're iconic, but there are 5 of them. Now, although Stormer XL is fairly different, it's important to note that Speeder Demon is the main victim of the prototype phase. What is that head? Speeder Demon officially had the worst posture of any Hero Factory hero or villain. There was also a lot of wires crowding around what seems to be some kind of backpack, some back piece. There's the purple lightning by the wheels, which is fairly 2D and a very prototype design. This will make a return. The motorbike itself is a lot thinner and a lot less detailed than the final version, and I'm actually very glad of that. There seemed to be some kind of gun on the front as well, which is very cool to see. Pretty much every piece on the motorbike and Speeder Demon's design has changed, which is mad. I'm not sure if we ever find out that the name of the ice planet is Colix 4, but there it is. Wing blades, lightning bolt handlebars, razor wheels, and lightning exhaust. Okay, all of those can comply with the modern Speeder Demon design, but I don't see any wing blades on this. I'm not sure if I'm just blind, but I don't see any. This is probably the most fascinating prototype design just because of how different it is. And also this looks like a picture that was taken. So I want the prototype Speeder Demon head because I really am not sure how it goes. There's also something under the motorbike, which is quite interesting. Now we take a step back here. Some people believe this to be Stringer 4.0. I don't, purely because of the chest piece. I believe that this is our first look at Stringer 2. I'll be totally honest with you. The mouthpiece and the arms and the single wire going down to the weapon literally seen on Stormer 2.0 leads me to believe that Stringer was meant to be an Ordeal of fire. And that's a thought that I had for quite a few years. So this, in my opinion, is an entirely new character. Literally, this is an original creation. This character does not exist. Stringer 2.0. I had it in the back of my mind somehow. Stringer was meant to appear in Ordeal of Fire. And if this is the design that they had intended for them, that could potentially be massive. This is the back of a prototype Voltex. And like I said on Speeder Demon, yes, the lightning makes a return, this time yellow instead of purple. Very 2D, obviously that went through a different phase before they finally used them. The weapon here on Voltex is different. They actually hadn't planned for him to have any hands like he does in the show. The feet here are fairly weird as well, because they aren't a piece that exists either. I can see what kind of piece they were going for, and it's the one they ended up using. What has me most confused here is which way Voltex is facing. Now, I would be led to believe from the way that the wires are that he's facing away from us, but the leg pieces are facing towards us, the arms are facing towards us. So this could actually be the original Voltex looking at us. And that my mind doesn't agree with that. There are also some red and blue wires leading out from the weapon as well, which look very cool, but I can see why they changed them. This is an original design for Bulk 4, which confirms that during the Breakout phase they weren't going to reuse 1.0 heads, which is something very interesting to note. They were at least considering an original Breakout head. Now, unfortunately, the confidential picture does cover a lot of a prototype Bulk 4.0's weapon on his left arm, so I can't make out what it is, but I can confirm it does not exist. It is not the weapon that they went with. There are pieces that do not exist, and I cannot for the life of me fully make out what this is. But yep, this piece, especially the piece by the elbow here, entirely new. And there is a wire connected to it. Connected to another piece that does not exist. And on the elbow there's another piece that doesn't exist. And on his shoulder, there's an entire 2.0 weapon. I don't know why that's on his shoulder. Maybe you could place 4.0 soldiers' weapons on their shoulders. Like, obviously you can mock up a way to do that now. But just the idea that it was intentional, that's crazy. There seems to be some kind of ammo being stored in this ammo belt, which is very nice to see as well. And at the end of it all, just a regular hand, which is strange. It does also seem that there's red, black and white, all as prevalent colours, and a grey head. And a grey piece on the shoulders and elbows as well. That is very interesting. Right, original Core Hunter. This is insane. Like, take a closer look at it. Firstly, Core Hunter is obviously a Hero Factory assassin. So to see actual 1.0 heads of Core Hunter's victims on their body is incredible. That says so much. The head hasn't changed too much, it just has a few less eyes, and I cannot make out what's on its shoulder. But on the knees, there are 2.0 heads. Isn't that incredible? Core Hunter has a kill count, and this is a lot of rare pieces that would go into Core Hunter. Actually, looking back on it, it seems like those are a mix of 2 and 1.0 heads. I don't know how they're being connected to the body, but that is very, very cool. He's also holding a staff. Very, very bionicle of him, but that is also a staff that does not exist. It's very, very threatening, and it's connected by an orange wire. This is the coolest proto design by far. Forget what I've said, because this is just so powerful. It's a personal favorite character of mine from Breakout as well. I would try and build this to the best of my ability if I could, but it would mean taking some other figures apart. It's just the fact that there are 3 heads and 2 2.0 heads on this design. He is a real hunter, and that is fantastic. I don't know what this is. I mean, it might be a prototype next 4, it could be a prototype next 2. It's the fact that like they use the 2.0 body armor as placeholders for everything from Stormer 4.0 to whatever the stringer was. Orange legs and the very strange and unique prototype head lead me to believe that this is probably next 4, because all of the other designs until now are going in chronological order, and also the weapon is 4.0 as well. I don't know what's going on here, but yeah, this is a very interesting, very different Nex. The original design for XT4 confirms that they have a claw. Very cool to see. The arms were also a little different. There are a few more Lego pieces to go with them. The feet were the same. Very cool. And I love this saw, this double saw piece. Why did they downgrade XT4? And also their head is a bit less grumpy. These last 2 I'm pretty sure are developer documents for people on the team. I'm not entirely sure of the significance of them. But what we can see on the second picture are different designs for the head of Furno, which is very cool. You can see here, for some reason, they've got a brain attack head, or a prototype version of a brain attack head, heads that don't exist, and then it phases into Invasion from Below, which is quite odd as well. I never bought Invasion from Below. That's the only set I didn't have anything to do with. I'm not a fan of it. But even I can notice there are some differences in these 2 designs as well. If you liked that piece of crap, then look to your heart's content. I'm sure there are a lot of prototype differences for you. Jet Rocker XL looking largely the same, and Inferno XL, I think that even might be the same render. Good as done. I'm pretty sure this is just getting across the idea of how Hero Factory characters work, or how they're made. The pieces on this one, especially in the top right, lead me to believe that this is some kind of Savage Planet era document compared to the other one, which is Breakout and onwards. But I really can't be too sure. And the piece at the bottom too. So those are all of the set prototypes. We had catalogue pages, we had real life pictures of boxes, a lot of fake renders, a lot of early renders, a lot of new pieces that don't exist, a lot of different designs that they went with. It's fantastic. Looking at the descriptions on the Hero Factory wiki for those last 2, it says that it's a development description of the character and create a building system. Seems a bit high-tech for what it is. And also the prototype sketches for Furno XL's helmet used in the Brain Attack set wave, which means that I suppose Invasion from Below was in development at the same time. I mean, if it's to be believed that sets were in development 2 years in advance, that's not too ridiculous to believe. And it also does seem in that last picture that there were Rocker minifigure prototype head pieces as well. So there we are. That was massive. That was unbelievable. I couldn't believe ever getting news like that. And I can't believe that that went over my head for over a year. I don't think anybody expected news like this in the Hero Factory community again. Obviously, the community is still very much alive, but something like this is just unthinkable. This is the kind of stuff that you get in gaming, in Nintendo. I love the beta bags for Breakout, and I love the beta boxes for Ordeal of Fire and Rise of the Rookie specifically. No disrespect to Witch Doctor. I would love to own them, but I'm never going to, which sucks. Or will I?